So this is a response video to a comment, well, like a paragraph, several paragraph long response to a video that I recently posted, which is ghosting equals simping. And Mgtow, you can look at the video. It's a very short video. It's about 5 minutes long. And this person, the short version of the name is Zeta. Don't know if he's male or female. I will use the pronoun he or the masculine pronoun, so I don't make this video longer than it really has to be. For those of you who are not familiar with formal English, the masculine pronoun is typically used when referencing um, he and they, used to reference a lot of in the cover the blanket of humanity, and that's how I intend to use today. I'm not about to get into this an argument or a fight over syntax. Um, Hopefully, you guys will understand the meaning and not quibble over things like that. Um, so, I'll start off with one of the comments that was made in the post, and he referred to the way I am presenting things as being um, sophistry. What you're sharing is sophistry. Uh, Not sharing what most men going their own way condone. And sophistry has a couple meanings. It has two meanings. One, a sophist is an ancient Greek teacher who taught virtue to young statesmen and nobles, often using philosophy and rhetoric. That's one. Um, that's one meaning of the word. Another meaning of the word is it's a use of subtle deception, and that is not my intent as far as deception. Um, but I am and I but I'm not a Greek teacher either, and I'm certainly not trying to teach or talk about teaching statesmen and noblemen, even though some of the mannerisms that nobility have used over the years is applicable today, um, from a philosophical perspective. Um, and yes, I am trying to teach some virtue. Um, but again, it all depends on how people take it. It could be seen as virtuous or it could be seen as misleading. I leave that up to you guys to determine. But my intent is not to be deceptive um, in that regard. The other um, thing that was um, used, um, the statement says, "To each his own" sounds very purple to me. Never heard anything like this, except from RP sellers. I have no idea what RP sellers. I try to research it. If you know what that is, you could reference it in the comment section down below, so I have a better understanding what that is. But I won't be talking about that. But I will refer to the talk about the purple. I'm assuming that's a reference to the purple pill or something within the matrix where you combine the blue and the red pill to have a purple pill. And that I do agree on. If it's referencing to something like that, the purple uh, sword that Mace Windu used in Star Wars, where he kind of straddles both the good and the dark, or he utilizes both sides of the Force in some way. I think that's also a reference. I'm not sure if it's either one of those. If it's not one of those, put it in the comment section down below. But I'm assuming it leans more towards the purple pill, a combination of the red and blue pill from the Matrix. Um, if it is the Matrix reference, I would say yes, because the reality is life, the existence has a duality. It's never cut. It's never one way or the other. There's a scale, and in some cases, if you look at quantum physics, there is a duality that's always in play. Even computers, the quantum computers using the superpositioning, meaning uh, it's one and zero at the same time. That's the nature of life. Eastern philosophy supports that heavily. If you look at the Srimad Bhagavatam or the what's the other books out there? The Mahabharata. I'm looking up at my collection of books. A lot of the Eastern philosophy books have a duality within it. It's never really one way or the other. It's this way or the highway type thing. Um, feminists, the feminist movement has gone to one extreme or the to one extreme, and hence the why we're living in how we're living today with men and women. It has gone to a point of toxicity, um, and we are currently living in the byproduct of that. In my opinion, there are a lot of statistics out there showing some of these things, especially when it comes to relationships and marriage, where most, you know, at least in the black community, which is what I deal in, where about 85 to 90% of black people were married in the 50s and 60s, and then that's kind of shifted after that to now that it's like what 28% or something like that. Where it's reversed now, 85% of marriage and divorce, 80% women are the ones who who initiate that, and of course, one in every four black women will ever be married in their lifetime. So um, so the statistics are there, and it could be argued one way or the other. My master's degree is in organizational psychology and business development, and when I did statistics, the same information grabbed that can be used to argue one way or the other. It all depends on how things are worded. You can take the same statistics to argue for, and you can use the same statistics to argue against, whatever that topic is. So, again, there are dualities in everything that we do. So, in that regard, yes, I agree with Zeta. I am purple in that regard. Um, because my mindset is on the duality of life, not the extreme of life within Mgtow. And I hope most Mgtow men, as stated in his comments, the comment of that most Mgtow men are not at that extreme. In my opinion, I don't think most people cannot be at that extreme. Um, so, in that regard, yes, I would consider that myself purple. Um, the main agenda of women is to seek commitment. Um, that, for the most part, if you took a look at biology, I would say women are looking for um, security and you know provision. Those usually are the main things from a biological perspective. It's always been that way since the beginning of time. It's only in the past, what, 30 or 40 years, maybe, I'll be generous to say 60 years, where we're living in a new kind of independent woman kind of mindset, where they don't need anything. And of course, that's a byproduct of feminism. So all this is brand new. It has never been that way for thousands. It hasn't been this way for thousands of years. And the reaction, one of his comments is that a reaction towards today's male disposability and the greater value women have in the dating market, especially in regards to the dating market as it is presently. Um, if you look at a duality in which my mindset is when it comes to Mgtow, um, and I really believe most men are not looking. They have gone their own way, yes, but they're not monk. A true monk doesn't really interact with a lot of people at all, um, with the exception maybe Sadhguru and some of the other Eastern gurus that's using modern technology to really deliver a message. Most of the monks are up in the Himalayas somewhere, and even they cannot completely, avoid interacting with women because women are the ones that's bringing them food to eat, or or sending their men up indirectly with the food for them to live. So in a lot of cases, so it's not like um, they're completely cut off um, from interacting with women. Yes, monk in the sense that they're not in any kind of relationships. But back to the dating market. If you're in your 20s, yes. If you're a man in your 20s, you're you're not as valuable as a woman in her 20s. She knows that, and you know that. And if you don't, well, you should, because women are born with their value as they get into their teens and then late teens and early 20s. Their beauty grow. I mean, if they're born with beauty and stuff like that, then their and fertility. Um, it's the statistics show that men of all ages um, is within like 19 and what 90 or whatever it is, um, prefer a woman right around 23, 24 because that's the best time year for a woman to give have children. So from a biological perspective, you can't fight that. It just is what it is. Whereas men's values that low because it's low at that stage in their 20s because they're now building resources. They're now building themselves up, and we as men know that. It's that you have to build yourself up. And we don't come into a financial stride till um, uh, the beginnings of a financial stride in the mid 30s, and by the time you're mid 40s, you should be in your financial stride, or where you expect to be. So in that regard, that's why you find a lot of younger women like 20s. They might play around with young men, but they're looking for security and provision. And as mentioned in his paragraph, he mentioned women. The main agenda of women is to seek commitment. No, they're seeking security and provision. They use commitment as a weapon, and I use the word weapon deliberately to try to control man in modern time because um, prior to about 60 years ago, rich men or men with resources that can provide and protect had a lot of options, could have multiple wives, um, and was able to sustain multiple wives or multiple relationships and have multiple families. Um, that is not new. But what's new is modern day women is using the word or using commitment as a weapon to try to control men in that regard. And that's an oversimplification of it. Um, you could take it both negatively and positively, or one or the other. It is what it is. There's nothing I say is gonna be absolute truth or absolute lies. Um, no one speaks in absolutes like that. Maybe a mathematician, and even some mathematics doesn't have absolutes. So that's just a reality of life. It's a duality. So how you take that is up to you. Um, so in regard to the dating market, if you're in your 20s, men and women in their 20s, women obviously have more value. As a woman ages and gets into like a mid 30s, her value goes down because she's no longer um, she's going to geriatric years for pregnancy. That's just a reality, the biology of things. No one no one can really dispute that. No one can really fight that. And you could argue till you're blue in your face. Nature just don't give a damn. You're gonna get old as a woman, and that's just a reality of that. You can't fight that. Men get old too, but value goes up. That's just how it is. Up to a certain age, a little bit longer than women. But we can have kids throughout our entire lifetime, even after death. Like shortly after death, we could still have kids. If the sperm is taken out of us and inseminated into a woman, she could get pregnant. So it is what it is. I'm not going to argue too much about biology. Um, so hopefully I answered the responded to the purple part and did the market part. I did other videos on marketing on sexual market or dating market before, so you look at those. Um, Again, I rather not. He said I rather not use the term ghosting because this is what the video was about. I use the term ghosting. You guys understand what it means. Again, I'm not interested in a play of fight over words. There are many other words that could be used. That's the one I chose. As long as you get the message, that's what's important. You can switch out ghosting with anything else. Um, as far as being a man or manning up, um, I mean that literally in the fact that a lot of times in relationships where men get burned and start burned in intimate relationships with a woman, um, usually that's usually how it occurs. It's not the only way, but it's usually the way when start realizing, hey, and they start getting exposed like Mgtow and going their own way, men going their own way. It's something had to trigger that, and a lot of times, and I would say in my opinion, because I'm not familiar, I don't. There's no real statistics about that. But if you look at 85% or 80% of marriage being ended by women, that's burning men. That's how I approach that. So usually MGTOW men got burned in some way, shape, or form coming out of a relationship. And I use the divorce statistics to support my argument. Now, obviously, there are lots of other ways to support other arguments, but that's the one I'm using for mine. If you are using other statistics to support yours, that's great. I'm not going to discredit that. But when I use the word manning up, when it comes to ghosting, um, I'm talking about being a true man, being you in MGTOW, you've gone your own way. There is no need to to be afraid or to simp or to always trying to please somebody. You've gone your own way. All right. So you don't have to please no woman or please no man or please no any business or any relationship if you feel a certain way. And you should be strong enough or confident as a man to say, hey, I'm not I can't meet with you today. We have to reschedule. Or hey, I had time to think about it, or I observed you for a specific period of time. If that's a relationship type thing happening, I'm not interested in pursuing this relationship. There's nothing wrong with that. Get that closure, get that out of the way. Be clear and concise in your communication, is all I'm saying. It doesn't have to only apply to dating a woman or being in a relationship with a woman. It has a lot to do with any aspect of your life. If you're in a business agreement, you get into going over a business contract and you see something that you don't agree with or you don't understand, you're clear and concise in your communication and tell the person that you're doing the business deal with, hey, this is not, I don't understand this, or I want this change, I can't agree to this particular thing. And you all work that out and move on. If you still want to do a business deal. Now, if you don't want to do a business deal, you could be clear and concise. Hey, I'm looking at the information you provide, and this is not the way I want to take my business. Thanks for your time. Have a good day. And you walk away. Walk MGTOW, men going your own way. It was clear and concise. It's specific. It's not really that difficult from my perspective to be able to stand your ground as a man and instead of catering to women in this case, in this regard that I'm talking about, as a simp or beta male. Yes, we have all aspects of it and we choose our battles. But if something isn't how you want it to be, yes, it can be difficult and that person might look at you funny. That's their problem. You have already gone your own way. Even when you're with somebody, the duality of life, what is and what is not. Um, Zero and ones together, superpositioning. We live it. We just don't express it that way. Eastern philosophy is very heavily laden with that, and I would encourage you guys to go out there, especially if you're in Mgtow, to read some of the Eastern philosophies concerning these things. Um, so the other aspect that he talked about is um, legacy. All right, so says again, he say, I review your words. So it's like kind of nitpicking the words and not the message, which is about ghosting, being respectful, basically, having some standards. Um, I review your words and you see the basic tenets of Mgtow is, is no marriage, no cohabitation, and if possible, and much you can refrain from raising a legacy. In this regard, some of his grammar is a little off, but that's all right. Um, in this regard, I completely agree. Um, the premise of Mgtow is no marriage and no cohabitation, but to me that is for a very few can possibly do that. However, like going monk, as he referred to later on. Um, in my opinion, it's again my opinion, most people cannot do that. Um, no, most people isn't that extreme. And if MGTOW becomes a movement and becomes this extreme, uh, it will it will be a male's version of modern feminism. It will become that way because modern feminism has become so extreme that it's creating so much chaos and it's creating a lot of issues in relationships due to that. Um, so in that regard, that's more of a foresight. History can repeat itself; it just takes a different form. This time, it might take the form if MGTOW becomes a movement and goes that extreme. That's what it will become, a repetition of feminism from a masculine perspective, I guess. Um, I do not condone that. I do not condone the modern feminism, and we could argue about that. That we'll have to agree to disagree on that if there's some disagreement. Um, as far as raising a legacy, um, and marriage and stuff like that, those of you who are capable of not getting married, not cohabiting with a woman or anybody for that matter, you're on your own way. Um, you know, is one way to look at it. But if you're looking at porn and things like that to relieve yourself, um, you're not completely monk, and you're filling that void, and you're basically fooling yourself into thinking that you don't desire cohabitation or marriage, um, or if you're seeking out prostitutes, things like that. You know that's a hypocrisy that I do not condone, and that's why I say most men cannot go to that extreme. Would not is in Mgtow does not go to that extreme. Um, at all. But those who can genuinely go that way is actually kind of like nirvana. It's like I would say the holy grail of Mgtow. Um, but most people can't. That's just statistically most people. That's why statistically only like 1% of the population is rich. You know, that's an extreme. And of course, there are anomalies throughout, so don't get in a nitpicking about that. Um, So as far as no marriage, no cohabitation, I strongly believe, and this is a belief, that you can still be Mgtow philosophically and mentally and emotion in all aspects of the 7 or 8 healths that I've spoken about. You can look at those videos to see what I'm talking about, and still be married or cohabitate. Um, because you've already gone your own way up here. You already made some changes in your life, and you know your true worth, and you're constantly building on that true worth. So no woman, married or not, or just or living with, can chip away at that or break that down. It's just it will be impossible for a woman to do that to a MGTOW man. And if she does try, it's even easier to walk away. And I have videos where I did on things like that, where you could just simply walk away from the cohabitation or the marriage because you've already walked away philosophically, and you're applying a lot of stuff to your way of living. Now, in this regard, where he talks about it, no marriage, no cohabitation, I'm assuming, or I am interpreting it as a physical thing. You're not physically married. You're not physically living with that person. You can physically cohabitate with somebody and not be emotionally engaged in the same way. Not with all the mental, emotional, spiritually uh, engagement. You're not cohabiting mentally, emotionally, spiritually, completely. You're still you, and you live by your standards. And if the woman or you can't compromise in certain ways for it to work successfully, it's easy to go on. It's easier. I'm sure. I mean, there's always hurt and struggles in any relationship, even the friendship ones and stuff with anybody. Um, and there's no way in the modes of material nature to escape strife, struggles, suffering. There's just no way living in the modes of material nature. And if you can't understand that, look at some of our videos where I talk about the modes of material nature. You can go out there and read the books, the Eastern philosophies, compare it to the Western philosophies, religion, all those things, and formulate your own idea. There's just no way to, even a monk, spiritual monk that's just up in the bushes somewhere in the Himalayas mountains, he still resides within this physical body. So it's impossible to escape the modes of material nature. It's impossible to escape suffering and strife. It's always there as long as you have this physical body, as long as you live in this world. At least based on my understanding and studying of the Eastern philosophies and so forth. Um, what else he says? Manosphere options. I think that's it. If you guys have any questions, ask it in the comments section down below. Zeta, if I answer some of your responded to your stuff or I missed something, go ahead and respond to this video and put it down there so I can respond to those things specifically. um, Long-term relationships, again, I'm not against it, and if I don't mind being purple in that regard, but I don't think I'll ever be an extremist, because I do not want MGTOW, if it ever becomes a movement in the future, to become so extreme where it's exactly like feminism, as feminism is today. Yes, young man, you got to build yourself to become valuable in the dating market. That take If you work in your mid 20s, which I've done videos about, by the time you're in your mid 30s, early 40s, you should be in your financial stride. That's where you're more valuable to a woman in the 20s and early 20s, and you can get women in the early 20s that's not traumatized, hasn't been going through the whole phase and things like that. Um, in I mean, a lot of Western women today they're going through the whole phase at a much earlier age, But the world is a big place. You have other countries you could visit. You have access to a world of women, not just the ones in your community. Um, a lot of women, even though they have access to a world of men, the older they get, uh, men across the world do not really want a woman to marry. So their pool shrinks. That's just the reality of life. There's some anomalies within there that can find a man anywhere in the world that will marry them is for their money or whatever. You know, there are always dualities. Like, subscribe again. Y'all have a good day.